and somebody seems to have stolen my stolen land. When I was in my early 20s, I found a beachfront property that I wanted. It kind of looked like a jungle. So I tried to find the owner so that I could buy it, and when I did a title search, found that it was actually 2 parcels of land and that the last owner died in the 1950s and they didn't have any children. They were never married. And then an attorney told me about adverse possession. This exists in most countries, and it is when you claim land as your own and maintain it, and if no one comes forward after a certain period of time, depending on where you are, it could be 10 years, 12 years. After that period of time, you own the land and you get the title. So I became a squatter. I fenced off the property and started maintaining it, and although I haven't lived there, I have taken care of it for more than 10 years. Nobody's ever come forward and said, hey, that's mine, or like, who fenced off that property? And it's in a very gossipy neighborhood where if someone actually owned it, they would have said something. So I am almost at the point where I can declare the land as my own and like get the title for it. And there's a for sale sign outside of the property. And something I find very suspicious about this listing is not only has it just about been enough time for someone to come forward and say, I've been squatting, like that's my fence, I've been taking care of the land, but in the description of the listing, the division of the land, like it is 2 lots, but the size of the lots is not the same as what it said when I got the title. Like the parcels are different sizes. So either someone else stole my stolen land and then like had the lots divided, or some relative of this person who died in the 1950s has appeared. I'm going to get to the bottom of it, and I'm going to find the person that is selling it. And if it is not someone who is related to the person who had the title when I did the title search, then we're going to have a problem.
All right, so y'all asked for the story time, and I'm going to deliver. The first part will be about how I found out that he was a squatter, and the second part will be about how I found out about his multiple personalities. So, for a little backstory, I met this guy, Steve, through my sister. Her fiance was friends with Steve, and I would see him at different events that they would host. So, at one of these events, he had been checking me out. He was like, I want to get to know you, whatever. And I thought he was attractive, so I was like, okay, cool. No biggie. So around this time, it was about 2017, I was around 22, 23. Steve was 10 years older than me. Every time we hung out, it was always in a group setting, or just like he would come to my house from time to time or whatever, but I had never went to his house, which really wasn't abnormal to me because I really wasn't too big on going to guys' houses because y'all know what guys you want to do. So one day, Steve asked me, did I want to come chill with him? And I was like, yeah, cool. So he said that his car had broken down and to come pick him up from somewhere. So I went to go pick him up and then went to his house. We pull up to what seems to be a normal house, like, just a normal house. So Steve was like, wait right here, I'll be right back. I'm like, okay, cool. So I FaceTimed my sister and she was like, girl, what you doing? I was like, girl, nothing. I'm at Steve's house, about to chill with him. She was like, Steve's house? And that should have been a dead giveaway for me that something wasn't right. But I was like, yeah, I'm at Steve's house. And she was like, girl, I ain't never known Steve to have no house. Y'all, as soon as she said that, I looked up and Steve was in on the roof of the house. So I turned the camera around so that my sister can witness this shit with me. And she was like, girl, what is he doing? It looked like he had went into what appeared to be, like, it could have been an attic, it could have been a window. It looked like a regular window, but he went through it, and then he came to the front door and was motioning me for to come in. And I'm backing my car up, because I'm like, who the fuck house are we at? So Steve comes to the car, and he's like, what you doing? I was like, sir, whose house is this? He was like, it's my house. I just, I forgot what my key was, so I had to come in this way. That didn't sound right to me. So I'm like, Steve, are you sure? He was like, well, to be honest, this is my mom's old house. The city condemned it. It's no running water. It's no lights. It's no nothing. But I've been staying here for a while now because I don't have nowhere else to go. Now, this put a lot into perspective for me, because there was times that I would go to my sister's house in the morning and Steve would be there taking a shower or whatever, and they would always kick it to me like, oh yeah, the guy was out all night and he decided to stay over when they came in from drinking, so that's why he here. Y'all, just like for part two.
Okay, quick story time on how I had to get a squatter out of my own apartment and I ended up getting arrested. So the squatter was in my Airbnb unit. I am based out of Atlanta, and for the most part, this entire story is on YouTube. Like, literally, it's an hour long. I go into all of the detail, highlighted on my stories, but I'm going to give y'all a quick synopsis here. So, answering some frequently asked questions. This was not a local person, so a lot of people like to ask. So a lot of people like to ask whether or not it was a local person. Was this a 5-star guest? Did they like stay more than 21 or 28 days? None of that has anything to do with it, and I am sorry that so many people made you believe that that had anything to do with preventing people from squatting in your unit. There's no real way to prevent it. So here's what happened. He came and booked a spot, and this was one of my corporate lease units, booked a unit in my corporate lease apartments. He booked one, and it was initially for a stay of about, I'd say like 14 days, I believe. Watch the video. I got all of the correct numbers there. But he stayed for that initial amount of time. Things were okay, couple of red flags, but for the most part, I was fine, because I'm like, all right, this is another host out in like somewhere in the UK, Belgium, I don't know. And he also had a number of units too. So there was really nothing to worry about, because he's a 5-star guest. He's another host. I didn't think something like that was going to happen to me. But he ended up staying and had all of these other little issues. And I sat down and had coffee with him, initially told him about my business, a whole bunch of crazy stuff that like your mouth would be on the floor. So either way, it's him, his wife, and then I think he has a kid or two as well. Long story short, we get to the point where it is the end of their reservation, and we let them know, hey, the end of your reservation's coming up, you're going to have to leave. He pretty much responds with, I'm not leaving. We don't have anywhere to go. All of this other stuff that has really nothing to do with me. Like, I don't give a damn. It had nothing to do with me. But either way, that's how he responded. So when he responded with that, which was around 72 hours prior to his departure, at that point, we then started to try to get him out. So by getting him out, I mean, I called the police. They showed up. The sergeant showed up. I called the police 3 or 4 different times, y'all. Nobody did anything. At that point, that Thursday, before the Friday he was supposed to leave, I let Airbnb know, like, hey, I got another guest that's supposed to be coming in immediately after this. Like, bruh. Long story short, Airbnb didn't end up doing anything. They didn't get back to me. Friday morning came. I knew I had another guest. And that is when I decided to show up with one of my homegirls. And I have a license to carry. So my gun was on my hip. And that is why the gun then came into the entire story. And long story short, I ended up leaving in cuffs with disorderly conduct as my charge.
Went back inside. We all set up our tents on my neighbor's property, which was about 100 meters away from mine. His property was slightly elevated, so we picked a good spot where we could watch them constantly without being too obvious. The next day the squatters did nothing and stayed at the house. The following day they did the same. Now this was concerning, as our plan could only happen if they left in their car. The third morning we saw the male leave on his own. In about 30 minutes he came back. We think he might have been testing the water, so to speak, to see if we went over to the property, but we didn't, as we realized the female and kid were still inside. Then about 11 a.m. they all got into the car and drove off. One of our friends discreetly followed behind them, and he was calling us every 15 minutes to update us where they were going. After they drove past the shop 20 minutes away, we presumed they were driving into the major town to shop, some 3 to 4 hours return drive. We then went over to my place and removed all their property, taking it out onto the road adjacent to the fence and dumped it there. I then got a massive big industrial chain I have in the shed and secured it between the posts of my driveway. The rest of the property is fenced from the road. We then packed up all the tents in my neighbor's place and everyone moved into my house. Our other friend had advised us they just hired a trailer, and we wondered if they had decided to move out and perhaps we had acted too quickly, but inevitably we decided we acted correctly.
Okay, story time is overdue on this page because I got a lot of stories to tell. So let's get started with my cousin that squatted. So if you don't know what a squatter is, look it up. But the basic definition is someone that stays in your property illegally past a certain amount of time or whatever. And squatters have rights, like a shitload of them.
And this is actually kind of common. This has happened to a couple of my friends ever since this happened to me. So if you know how to get rid of squatters, comment, please. Anyway, so many years ago, I went to go work in Utah, and it's obviously none of us there, but I was there because the money was good. And I was prepared to be, you know, the only one there, but come to find out I had a cousin there. And this cousin just happened to be a scammer. And he scammed his way from Texas to Salt Lake City, Utah. He scammed his way by rapping. He was a Christian rapper, and he changed his whatever Christian, I don't know what it's called, but he changed over from Christian to Mormon. So now he's LDS, and he scammed his way through several LDS churches. I ain't got nothing to do with that. I don't judge nobody or how they get their money. I live my life. I don't give a fuck how you get your money. I don't care. Do what you got to do. But my money is legal. I live a straight and narrow path. So, the last winter that I was there was cold. The other two were not. They were actually very mild. I guess I brought the heat from Georgia, but that third one, it was like -20 for like 3 months. It snowed every day. So they didn't have a place to live. And my cousin had a wife and 5 kids, the 5th one being a newborn baby. I was in between apartments, so I said, you know what? I got 3 weeks left on this lease at the old apartment. Y'all go ahead. Don't say nothing to nobody. Y'all know how that works. Somebody hooking you up and it's snow outside, you better shut the fuck up, right? Now, cuz went to the rent office. Hey, man, my cousin such and such. This her date of birth. You see her picture? That my cousin. We in 4B. How can you help us? We need to stay here longer than 3 weeks. I mean, he sink or swim. He was drowning in that rent office. Told on me. I got in trouble. Y'all gotta go. Of course, they didn't leave. Went, tried to catch them. I mean, every method that was on the internet to get rid of squatters, they already knew it. And apparently that's how they've scammed their way, you know, through Utah this whole time. I just ain't know it because I was over there minding my business. Eventually, I called the police and I caught them gone somehow. And, yeah, end up talking to family. Before y'all go in on me, end up talking to family. He scammed tens of thousands of dollars out of family. So I don't feel bad.
My squatter threatened to shoot up my husband's car. So, story time. You guys know I had a squatter. I had a tenant who was living in my home and their lease ended. They refused to leave. We missed out on another family moving in because they were holding my property hostage, refused to leave. Lease ended October 31st of this year. They just got evicted yesterday, December 18th of 2024. So I had a padlock scheduled with the sheriff's department yesterday, 8:30 in the morning. I got there at 8:30, of course. We did the padlock. Everything was out except for some furniture pieces. So my husband told me the night before, he was like, hey, I'm coming up there with you just in case he wants to show up and act crazy. I'm thinking, you know, when someone gets padlocked, if they're already out, they're really not going to show up. They're not going to, you know, cause a scene or anything like that. So, was I wrong? So I, go through, I realized they smoked weed in my home. I'm going to look at their lease agreement and see what that fee is. But my home smells straight like weed. Due to the smell being so strong, we're going to have to change the carpets. The carpets are maybe 2 years old. So that's another expense that's going to be added when we go to court. But that's neither here or there. Okay, so back to the story. I'm changing the locks. We're walking around the property. I'm like, hey, I'm going to go outside, check the outside storage just to see, if there's anything in there. So I had already texted a couple of my Hispanic guys to come and give me some quotes on some things. And I'm thinking that it's them pulling up. So there's a white Honda that pulls up on the side of the house. And this guy gets out. He has like a turban on, dressed in black with like a green city, like he works for the city, like a vest on. So I'm thinking it's one of my guys. So I'm like, hello. The guy looks disgruntled. And I'm just like, maybe this is not one of my Hispanic guys. And I could, I wear glasses anyway, so my eyesight already is not the best. So I'm, hello. thinking that it's one of my guys. And my husband's like, what are you doing? And I'm like, I'm walking to the storage closet, because his car was at the end of the driveway. He pulled up to the end of the driveway, grabbed a bag of trash that was at the curb. So I'm like, okay, maybe it's a homeless person, or maybe it's somebody that saw something they wanted that's at the curb and they're coming to pick it up. I didn't realize it was my squatter who was at the end of the driveway. So he proceeds to get in his car. Like, after I spoke, he didn't say anything. He looked at me dead in my face, didn't say nothing, got in the car, made a U-turn to go out of the neighborhood, rolls his window down, and he was like, I wish you would have been that quick to come and fix stuff when things broke. Mind you guys, there was only a handful of maintenance tickets ever open for this property. We've never really had a lot of communication. I'm thinking everything's fine. If you don't open up a maintenance ticket on our portal, go through the system, go through the processes, I'm not going to know that something's wrong in the home. The only maintenance tickets that I know were open was for the furnace when that happened. So you guys know, when you have to order parts and stuff, you're at the mercy of the business that you're ordering the parts from. You're at the mercy of the shipping company. You're also at the mercy of holidays and business closures. So I think that furnace issue happened in December, January time frame, but we reimbursed him for his electric bill. So neither here or there. There was also an issue with their refrigerator. We gave them a solution. They denied our solution. So I don't really know what he's talking about regarding, oh, you should have been that quick to come and fix stuff. I guess he's saying how we were out there so quick getting locks changed and things like that when he pulled up to the house. So then he's like, you goofy, which I'm just like, okay. He's doing all of this while he's driving off, okay? Driving off, yelling out the window. My husband's right here. About 10 minutes later, he texts my phone. I'm going to show you guys what he wrote. All right, so this is the message that he sent my phone after he pulled out of the neighborhood. You think this shit is a game, goofy, question mark. So I show my husband. My husband takes the phone, and he proceeds to call him. And I'm like, you need to record the phone call. You need to record it. So I don't think I'm going to insert a clip of the phone call because we might need to use that in court. But he was like, oh, so she got you fighting her battles now. And I'm just like, first off, you are a grown man trying to argue with a female. Number one, check yourself. Don't call yourself a man if you're trying to argue with a female. Number one, okay? Number two, why are you so angry? We gave you the opportunity to move out last year. We told you we would waive this and we'll waive this and we won't put an eviction on your record and we'll give you a rental reference. No, your pride got the best of you and you declined all of that, and now we're here. You're going to have an eviction on your record for 7 to 10 years. I'm going to get a judgment, and we could have avoided all of this. So on the phone call, he starts throwing threats, talking about my husband got his car with a PPP loan. I'm just like, a PPP loan? We never even got a PPP loan. So then he says, I'm a flip your car or something like that. And you guys, if you know street terminology, you know flipping a car means I'm gonna shoot up your car. Me being green, I didn't know what flipping a car meant. I thought he meant he was going to go sell my husband's car for parts. I didn't know what he meant. He meant he was going to shoot up my husband's car. And my husband's like, we're still right here. We're right here. And we always go expecting the worst but hoping for the best. So my husband had protection on him. Just in case, God forbid, something was to happen, we are protected, okay? So we were protected, and they're going back and forth, and I was just like, this is ridiculous. This is so crazy. I did everything by the book. Yet I still have someone who wants to argue with me, who thinks he's going to get his security deposit back, who's threatening to shoot up my husband's car. He said some other stuff. I think he might have called me out my name, maybe. Then he was like, you think this SHIT is a game? And I'm like, no, obviously you thought this was a game. You thought that you could file an appeal and stay in the house forever. However, I knew this day would come sooner rather than later because of his payment history. He never paid on time, ever. His whole entire tenancy, all 12 months, he was always late. He was always late. He was never on time. So I knew eventually I was going to win this battle. And the battle is still not over. We still have to go to district court. So we still have to go to court. That's why I can't really play the video for you guys, because I might need to use that video in court. Who knows? I don't know. And I know a lot of people say, oh, don't let one bad apple ruin it for people who really need a chance. It has ruined it. It really has. I'm going to be very selective with who I rent to. Very selective, because I cannot continue to go through things like this. I'm trying to operate a business, and I feel like it's probably due to the color of my skin that I get treated like this from black men, and I don't understand. I've dealt with this twice this year from black men, and it's just like, if these black men were renting from another white man, I don't think that they would be experiencing this same thing to this level, to this magnitude. I feel like since I'm a black woman, they feel that they can talk to me any kind of way, and it's just like, y'all forgot I got a husband. I got a husband. My husband's not going to let just anybody talk to me any kind of way. That's not what we're doing here. We're trying to operate a business. We're trying to provide beautiful homes to people, renovated, updated homes to people, and you were evicted because you could not pay your rent. I gave you a chance to get out without going through all of this. You declined it. I guess he thought he was going to win, but you don't win when my name is on the deed. You're not going to win. You're not going to win. So, yeah. Yesterday was very eventful. We were on our toes all day yesterday because you're threatening to shoot up my husband's car. That's not okay. So best believe his legal aid attorney will be getting a call. He will be getting a call. Yeah. All right, guys, I'll keep you guys posted with this. I'm sure I'm going to hear from him again. I'm sure. He's crazy.
We are trying to find a place to move out to. Other than that, we are on the street because we are in between leases.
Where will you go when you leave here?
We got nowhere to go. We had this place for 4 months. With Airbnb, we booked for 4 months.
Did you pay for 4 months in advance?
We paid for 1 month, and it has on our receipts a monthly amount to be coming out of my bank account.
The thing is, then you can afford 3 months somewhere else. You can afford. So you can't afford it. You couldn't have afforded it.
All I wanted was.
Correct, but the property owners, what we're representing, Sanjay, is that, but right now the property owners are taking such huge thousands of dollars of losses. The dogs, we don't know, is there damage? Now we're talking about, and you don't have any money to pay that.
And if you don't have money to house yourself, that's not his problem.
I agree.
You're costing him money. How about if you owned this and someone did this to you?
No, I understand, and we are, like I said, we are trying to get him the money. No,
but
he will not.
That sounds like it's gone beyond the money at this point. Like,
I agree.
Like they just want you out.
We don't want to be here as much as we don't.
Where did you live beforehand? I'm curious.
Well, fun fact, we lived in Arcadia.
Okay.
Personally, I've been in between places of homelessness, in between friends' house, working odd jobs. I'm a gymnastics coach. I coach parkour, free running, gymnastics. Worked in Arcadia for 5 years. Lighthouse, Whittier. So I also do stunts, modeling as well. And I've just been living around the place.
Yeah. So it sounds like you're saying you're on the verge of homelessness.
You could say that. Yeah, times are tough.
Like you don't have a place to go tonight.
To call my own? No.
But you have like friends you could call or something like that. I mean, that would keep you off the streets. I mean, that's kind of the edge of it, right? Like that's the edge of homelessness. If you have to,
as a person who's trying to provide for myself and my significant other, I have places I could go. She does not have places she can go. That is not something I would like to publicize.
Yeah.
But I do understand. Like I understand that the property owner wants us out of here. We don't want to be here as much. I would even like to compensate him. I would love to pay for the money that we stay here, overstay 4 months.
I mean, it sounds like a complex situation with lots of ins and outs. But the bottom line, like I hear nervousness in your voice because you really don't know where to go tonight. I mean, officially don't have a place to stay tonight.
Sure, yeah.
What is that like?
What is it like to not have a place to go?
Yeah.
Have you ever been homeless?
No.
So, what it's like to not have a place to go? Personally, I always have a place to go. I have a car to sleep in.
Yeah. But that's your next option, huh?
No, my next option, I could also lease a place.
Yeah.
I could also, well, I can't because they've limited my usage. Airbnb, another place. But times are tough for everybody, and I understand that. Just like for the opportunities here, Airbnb, right? Everybody needs their money.
Never slow up, no I don't take shit. I got no love for the fakeness. If you wanna play tough and wanna hate this, I'll always show up. I don't ever slow up, no I don't take shit. I got no love for the fakeness. If you wanna play tough and wanna hate this, I'll always show up and make a statement. I don't ever slow up, no I don't take shit. I got no love for the fakeness. If you wanna play tough and wanna hate this, I'll always show up and make a statement.
Everything I do so instinctive and so passionate. Every word I move so descriptive like an adjective. I got a vendetta against people who patented being negative when you should be getting after it. I got facts over tracks, this and that. Spitting slow, spitting fast. I could roast, I could gas. Think I'm okay at last, but I don't know if that can erase all the past. And the pettiness, a reflection of the emptiness. Hilarious, you think
But
you're
be careful about letting people stay in your house when they say they just need a place to stay for like 2 or 3 days till they get their stuff together, till they get this other place. Baby, don't do it. Also, if you own multiple properties, don't be leaving your shit abandoned. Don't leave it empty. Because them squatters, they real out here in these streets and they got rights. The county and the city and the state protect them. The laws protect squatters, people who invade your space and don't pay. But what I don't understand is why the city, the state, and the government don't be taking those squatters to court when they own public property, you know, like sleeping in the park. Because they just make them move. They make them carry on, mosey on along. They don't take them to jail. They don't charge them nothing. They don't put them out or nothing like that. They ain't got to go through the legal process. But if that person is in your house, you got to go through the legal process. It's almost like the city or the state or whatever, the government is telling you they're your responsibility now. It's above me now.
I got 3 minutes to try and explain this to y'all, so let's do this. All right, it was pretty difficult to make this, so y'all better blow this up. All right, both my grandparents own that property, and then my grandfather passed away in 2020, RIP, and my grandmother passed away early 2021, RIP, grandma, love you guys. Anyway, that's their property. And I didn't know they even still owned it. There used to be a lien on it, and I didn't know it got paid off, but it did get paid off, and property taxes have been kept up for a good minute now. So my mom had a friend who was strolling by the property and noticed that there was an RV there, and nobody has lived there for like 15 years, so he knows that nobody should be there. He asked my mom if he should run him off or something. My mom said, hold on, let me like get a hold of my son real quick. I'm like, Mom, what do I do? And then she's like, call your aunt. So I call my aunt, and I'm like, hey, so there's an RV over there, and she lets me know that that's her property, and then that my grandmother gave it to her in the will, and that it's their property now, and that there should be no RV there. So I'm like, okay, you want me to go check it out? And she's like, yeah. So I go check it out, and then she lets me know that it could be a family friend. And so as I'm going to check it out, I ask if it's his so-and-so, the family friend, and then he's like, no. So I'm like, well, what are you doing here? You know what I mean? He knows he shouldn't be there, obviously, and then that's when he starts hitting me with the squatter law. Like, what the fuck is the squatter law, bro? What squatter rights? What is that? And then that's when I kind of get mad and start recording his license plate and then his RV more and stuff. And then that's when I hear a kid and my heart kind of drops. And yeah, I kind of get mad. And I'm like, dude, you're a piece of shit. You're squatting with kids. And it's like, from what I know, he has a job. I've seen him in my work picking up orders for DoorDash. You know what I mean? Like, I'm pretty sure it's the same guy, same car. Like, and another reason real quick why I'm mad is my house burned down August 18, 2020, due to electrical problems inside the building. And so it's like, yeah, I'm mad because it's like I could be living there. I'm paying stupid amount of rent on a fucking townhome that I could be actually putting toward my a place on that, renting from my aunt or something. Or, you know what I mean? Just stuff like that. But anyway, once I hear the kids, I kind of calm down. I'm like, all right, you know what? I'm going to call the cops. And then so I called the cops. The old me, I would have whipped his ass. But you know what? I've been in trouble too much with the law in this little town. So I can't risk losing my kids or going to jail, losing my job. I got a good job now, so nah, forget that. So I call the cops, and then the cops are like, okay, if you could please do me a big favor and please wait off of the property and watch them and let me know if anything changes on the property. So I tell the dispatch, I'm like, yeah, I got that. We'll go park over there and we'll go watch them and stuff and we'll wait. Waited about 30 minutes because it's pretty much out in the country and stuff, you know what I mean? And then we see the sheriff pull up, and that's when I started recording. And that's when I started letting the sheriff know what's up. So the sheriff goes and talks to him, pulls up, and then as soon as he pulls up, the guy walks out with papers. And now what these papers stated when he handed them to the cops is that he somehow got power turned on. He got a account and a wire ran from that box to his own little RV. They did all of that with him by signing something. Or I don't know how you do that. But it looks like we're going to need a part 2, so my bad, y'all.
Hey y'all, so you know it's bad when I gotta walk in and just pause because I have no idea what I'm walking into. But on the flip note, we had just found 3 young teenagers hopping out of the window as we were knocking on the front door. So they basically seen us coming and like jetted, which I mean, I guess if that's what you want to do, but honestly, we would have talked to them, try to work something out. So that way they didn't have to leave right then. But one thing I've realized since going to houses with squatters in Atlanta, if they refuse to come and talk to us, I'm not chasing them. I'm not chasing them. Because there's been situations where I visited some houses 1 week, a second week, a third week, and no one comes to the door. And on the 4th week, someone answered, but it wasn't like the same person. And get this story. So the person that had came to the door was a female. But every time we had been there previously, we had seen a male. So we were like, are you new? Like, when did you get here? Are they just swapping out squatters? Like, what's going on? So she was like, no, actually, I just got out of jail, but my boyfriend was here with me, but he was wanted for murder. So he wouldn't let me come out and talk to y'all, but he's in jail now. I was like...
Police seen carrying suitcases out of a Hollywood Hills home. A squatter and her dog confronted by real estate agents who say 5 to 6 people were living in this vacant home. The husband and wife realtors responsible for this listing say,
we came back to do an open house right after the new year and the lockbox was cut off of the house.
They quickly realized someone was living inside the home and called police. Randall Smith says this woman claimed to be an OnlyFans model who was renting a room in the house under a fake lease created by a man who was not at the house when police showed up.
They fully moved in there. They had suitcases, bags, they had food in the fridge, food cooked on the stove.
A quick walkthrough of the house revealed
there was a lot of like dog poop and just like the beds were all messed up. There was a lot of trash everywhere. Just it kind of seemed like someone was like irresponsibly living there.
Randall Smith making these recommendations tonight.
Get a ring, get a security system, get something that you're having security at your house and getting people on video. And secondly, something that I've loved is like the Nextdoor app.
Anything to say about what happened today? Accused squatter Brian Rodriguez walked out of the courtroom with his head and eyes covered. That's not going on. But he wasn't camera shy last month when our cameras were rolling during a standoff he had with the homeowner. Adele Andaloro says Rodriguez moved into the Queen's house she inherited in the middle of the night and refused to leave.
So Adele, you're getting arrested right now?
Being arrested.
For what?
For being in my own home.
Police arrested her for changing the locks on her own home, something you can't do if someone claims to live there for 30 days. They later dropped the charges, and the Queen's DA started investigating after seeing for herself what happened.
We have the benefit of time, right? We're lawyers, we're not police officers.
In the courtroom, prosecutors charged Rodriguez with burglary, grand larceny, and possession of stolen property. His attorney told the judge he's the victim, claiming he signed a bogus lease with an unnamed real estate broker. When we asked him for a copy of that lease last month, he wouldn't show it.
Show us the proof.
But who are you for me to show? I showed it to cops.
Dan with Channel 7 News. If you don't want to show it, you don't want to show it.
Come here, brother. I like that.
I would like to see it.
He pulled up a document. It wasn't a lease.
This is a bill.
And after court, we asked again. Where's the lease? Do you have the lease or the paperwork that he claims he had?
Sir, a disgrace.
That was his attorney's response. His client faces up to 15 years in prison if convicted.
You can't walk into a house that's not yours and claim you have a right to be there. I thank the media for all the attention that they have given to this story and for being here today, because I do think it's an important message to send.
Rodriguez is now wearing an ankle monitoring bracelet, and a judge ordered him not to have any contact with the homeowner or the home in question itself. But get this, the story doesn't end there. It's still not empty. Prosecutors say he was leasing that home out to other people and making money off of it. They're still there tonight.
He's leasing it out, and he had no right to be leasing it out.
That's what prosecutors say, yes.
So any indication that is something in the works to get all of those people out of this home?
That's a very good question. It was hard to get a good answer. If they don't leave, she might have to take them to housing court to get them evicted.
For years, Donna Kent has wondered what's in the attic of her dad's old house. He passed away in 2012, but more than a decade later, the house is hers. But there's one giant hurdle keeping Donna from getting inside.
So I figured somebody eventually would show up. I didn't think it would take this long.
A squatter named Kyle has been living in the home for 6 years. That's him on the front porch. His face is blurred, but his intentions...
I understood the situation clearly that eventually someone would come back. And how would it make him feel if I told him I threw away their parents' property?
Hi, you're Kyle.
Yes, how are you?
In a shocking twist, the squatter opens the door for Donna.
Yeah, I've never even been upstairs.
And gives News Nation exclusive access.
Oh my goodness.
Into the attic.
Be careful.
We're good. Go ahead, I'm going to hold on to this rail right here.
Upstairs.
Just so much stuff everywhere. Let's see, this one says 1944. Look at this old car.
Pictures spanning generations. Unfortunately, most of the family photos are from her dad's second wife.
You know, at this point, I'm just sort of overwhelmed, to be honest.
From books to baseball cards from her dad's collection, she's sifting through decades when...
Oh, I bet you it's somebody's ashes. I wonder if this is my dad's ashes.
Donna discovers several cans of what appears to be remains.
Look, more ashes. That's crazy, you guys.
She even tells the squatter you can see his head popping up through the attic.
We think we found some people's ashes in containers, but we don't know who they are. Pleasant Plains pet crematorium. Are they pet ashes?
Donna later determining those ashes belong to animals, and the attic is somewhat of a makeshift pet cemetery.
It makes me feel a little better that they're pets and not people up here.
Back downstairs, a huge sigh of relief after years of waiting, but sadly not getting the closure she's been hoping for.
I've always felt like maybe there's something in there to give me some information, give me a glimpse into my dad's life, but you know, so it's nice that I was able to get in the house and see it for myself.
Squatters. Horror stories. I wasn't raised like that though.
But you by definition are doing that here.
I am. Technically, yeah, that's what it is, but I didn't break in. I didn't come in illegally. It's just they stopped coming to collect the rent.
Homeowners versus squatters. Incidents like this one in New York, uncovered by our station WABC's Dan Krauth, are pushing lawmakers to do something.
You shouldn't be trying to steal my house. Yes, you are.
In Florida Wednesday, Governor Ron DeSantis signing a bill into law to help homeowners get squatters out of their properties.
What the squatters know is even when they're in the wrong, it's a massive process many times before they can be evicted.
The new law, effective July 1st, allows property owners to request law enforcement immediately evict squatters who will not leave. City after city, it is a scene playing out repeatedly across the country.
They came in through the back when you having wild parties and people actually parking on the yard.
In Georgia, investigative reporter Ashley Lincoln at our ABC Atlanta affiliate, WSB TV, uncovering several corporate-owned rental properties taken over by squatters, like this property, for the last 14 months. This Ring video capturing the squatters unloading furniture into the home.
The police can't do anything and you can't protect nobody.
The state legislator there fighting back, saying squatters should be charged with trespassing. The bill now sitting on the governor's desk, waiting to become law.
Both of these acts, the one in Florida as well in Georgia, are giving homeowners a faster way to get these individuals out of the home. It's taking it out of the civil court process and empowering law officials to remove the squatters from the property.
In Los Angeles, ABC's Jacqueline Lee spoke with moms who call themselves vigilantes, creating a neighborhood watch after squatters took over this $3 million home down the street. Law enforcement unable to do anything because it's a, quote, civil matter.
You said squatters are treating this like their neighborhood.
You know, it's a constant problem.
The sign on the door says it all. No trespassing. If you try and enter, we will press charges for violation of expectation of privacy. This sign is on the front door of Fazana Rahman's Airbnb dorm rental. She owns it, but says she can't get access to it.
Now they're refusing to leave until there's an eviction order. I think they're just trying to gain time to stay there for free.
Because they haven't paid?
No.
This all started when her most recent guest did make a long-term rental reservation through Airbnb and checked in on October 25th. The guest did pay through Airbnb monthly, and you can see on the reservation details the checkout date was May 24th. When her cleaning lady went to clean the rental,
They answered the door and they said, no, we haven't moved out. She said, should I come tomorrow? And they said, no, don't come back.
Farzana went to the rental, this time, she says, with police. The next morning, still not gone, and this handwritten no trespassing sign on the front door that states, we will vacate the property when you filed the proper paperwork with the civil magistrate for an eviction, for we are legal residents of this home.
This is my place, and I'm counting on this income. My son is in college. I'm a single parent.
Farzana contacted Airbnb for help as she already had another long-term renter booked through Airbnb ready to move in. She says Airbnb has not been helpful.
They're sending me messages as, please get help for your safety and get whatever legal help you have to get them out.
I reached out to Airbnb several times. No one got back to me. Airbnb does have on their website this section devoted to things to consider before hosting monthly stays. Airbnb warns hosts who have guests who stay for a month or longer, you may not be able to remove a guest without going to court. Attorney Maya Davis with James Scott Farron says when guests stay longer than 90 days, it's typically considered a holdover tenant.
The longer they stay, the more rights they develop, so the quicker you can act and get them out of there, the better it is.
She suggests hosts' first step is to call police when a guest won't leave, and if police won't take action, you need to file with the courts right away.
You may have to file what we call the summary ejectment, which means that you want this person out, but you have to go through the court proceeding. So at that point, you have to give notice, you have to file and serve papers, you have to appear in court and get the court to grant that before you just remove someone from the property.
We did go to Fazana's rental. No one answered the door. I also left a message with the number listed on the sign. As for Fazana, she filed eviction paperwork with the court to try and get possession of her rental.
It's wasting my time, it's wasting my energy, it's stressing me out.
No, I looked at that lease. The lease has 4 people's names on it.
Yes, me, my husband, and my children.
I believe your husband has a warrant out for his arrest right now. Is that not the case?
That's nobody's business, and I don't know.
From a 2020?
You're violating my rights as American National Moor. I can contact the United Nations and have them say, y'all are violating my privacy.
No, the woman who owns this house told us that you do not. The lady who came, Linda, who came today, she has the keys. You guys changed the locks.
I have the keys to this house. I was given.
You changed the locks over the weekend.
Ma'am.
It's on video.
Leave me and my family alone. We paid $6,000.
Who did you pay the money to?
To a realtor.
Who's the realtor?
It's on the lease.
I've looked at the lease. The lease is not a legitimate lease.
I've looked at the lease and I signed the lease and I paid.
Who is the person? That person is not a realtor.
You seen the lease?
That is not the owner of the house.
I'm going to end this conversation with you.
So you're basically trespassing.
No, I'm not trespassing. I have a lease and I paid $6,000.
The woman who owns this house says you're trespassing.
I made a police report. The cops say I'm not. They see my lease.
That's not a legitimate lease. Why are you living in a house that you don't have the right to live in?
I do have the right to live here because I have a lease.
From whom? The woman who owns the house. What realtor?
There's plenty of realtors that's renting this house out. Why don't you go look?
Well, I've looked at it. Another lady wants to rent this house and they can't. Why are you living in a house you're not authorized to live in?
I am authorized to live in it. I have a lease. I paid $6,000 to be here.
Who did you pay? Because the woman who owns this house doesn't have it.
The police has the information. And you're harassing me and my family. And I will call the police on you. Thank you.
Hello, sir. You're delusional. You cannot do anything because the police said they will investigate it within a week so they will come back to us. As far as that, you have to leave.
This woman was just sentenced to jail for her role in this squatting saga I've been covering for more than a year now. This story is wild. It has made national news, and it's even resulted in a change to state law here in Florida. So last March, these women moved into a vacant rental house owned by Patty Peoples and her business partner. It was for sale at the time. Patty said they had an offer on it, so she was surprised when she found these two women living there. She ended up calling the police.
He has a signed lease and paid $3,100 for first and last month rent.
She implied she was a victim of a rental scam. So the officer does some research and he finds this suspicious.
You're being scammed for your home. This is what I believe. Now,
she's part of it.
She had claimed to be a victim of the same type of scam just months earlier from a nearby property where she had been recently evicted.
Oh no, of course, I'm not going to vacate.
But the officer says there's nothing he can do. It had to go through the civil court system to determine if they were actually victims, and that can take weeks. And the women were allowed to stay in the house, and Patty and the other owner weren't allowed inside.
Oh, okay, because once you're in my property and you're in my house,
this is not your property.
Oh, okay, I thought so.
This is not your property.
The squatters refused to leave, and as you can imagine, things got testy.
Why did you break the window?
It looked like we did it on purpose. Don't say nothing to her. Bye. Come on. Do we need to call Officer Smith again? Yeah. Didn't he tell you not to come here?
When the women were finally evicted weeks later, the house was left like this. Drywall was torn out. Patty said there was feces left on the carpets. Windows were broken. She also said appliances were stolen. Months later, this woman was arrested and charged with criminal mischief and trespassing. She pleaded guilty and the judge sentenced her to 30 days in jail plus 2 years probation, 50 hours of community service, and the judge also ordered her to pay about $3,600 to the victim in restitution. After our investigation exposed this legal loophole, the state legislature voted unanimously to fix it. If you want to know more about this story, we've got a lot of reporting on this on news4jax.com.
I had an eerie feeling when I got there because everything is different. Now there's a strange man inside. So I called the police, and first thing he says is, can I help you? I'm a tenant here. I've been a tenant here since January.
That's the first thing he said?
That's the first thing he says, yeah. And I'm like, no, you haven't. I was just here a few days ago doing a showing.
Prosecutors say White Hunt handed police a lease he claimed to have signed months earlier.
I look at it and then I realize my name is actually misspelled in the text. Not only in the text, but also in the signature.
When she contested the lease with police, she says White Hunt decided to leave on his own.
You thought that was the end of it?
I thought that was the end of it.
Then what happened?
Then 2 weeks later, I believe, we get served with papers.
The accused squatter took her to court, along with the homeowner, claiming he was illegally evicted. White Hunt's suit was dismissed, and the DA charged him with crimes ranging from burglary to identity theft.
Are you working a plea deal?
He pleaded not guilty.
Shelton, a handyman who founded the United Handyman Association, which does background checks on potential employees.
I just felt like, if they can take a house, I can take a house.
This man is on a mission to take back his parents' house after he says squatters moved in. Flash Shelton says after his dad died, his mom needed to sell their home. But when realtors tried to list the property, they found somebody already living there. Flash suspected it was a woman who'd called him asking to rent the place.
The woman who wanted to rent said she was a prison guard, she was being evicted.
Shelton says he told the lady no, but she moved into the property in Northern California anyway. He says law enforcement wouldn't help, so he drove 10 hours from LA.
I got in there around 4 a.m. I see cars in the driveway, and I figure I'm going to just sit it out.
Once the squatters left for the day, Shelton says he entered his home. Yep, his keys still work. What he discovered inside was shocking. Boxes and furniture everywhere.
It was so overwhelming. Just my stomach dropped. And, this is a home that I have memories with my parents in.
And look, that appears to be a California corrections officer's uniform.
When you saw a uniform that suggested that the person who was squatting was also a corrections officer, that must have been mind-blowing for you.
It was mind-blowing.
No, I looked at that lease. The lease has 4 people's names on it.
Yes, me, my husband, and my children.
I believe your husband has a warrant out for his arrest right now. Is that not the case?
That's nobody's business, and I don't know.
From a 2020?
You're violating my rights as American National Moore. I can contact the United Nations and have them say, y'all are violating my privacy.
No, the woman who owns this house told us that you do not. The lady who came, Linda, who came today, she has the keys. You guys changed the locks.
I have the keys to this house. I was given.
You
the
changed
keys
the
by
locks over the
realtor.
weekend.
Ma'am,
it's
can
on
y'all
video.
Please leave me and my family alone. We paid $6,000.
Who did you pay the money to?
To a realtor.
Who's the realtor?
It's on the lease.
I've looked at the lease. The lease is not a legitimate lease.
I've looked at the lease and I signed the lease and I paid.
Who is the person? That person is not a realtor.
You seen the lease?
That is not the owner of the house.
I'm going to end this conversation with you.
So you're basically trespassing.
No, I'm not trespassing. I have a lease and I paid $6,000.
The woman who owns this house says you're trespassing.
I made a police report. The cops say I'm not. They see my lease.
That's not a legitimate lease.
You know, people talk about being ruthless, but there is nobody more ruthless than New York City squatters. I have a client who was sick. He was living in a property by himself. The property is in foreclosure. He has not been paying his mortgage. And we were working on a short sale. And he was sick. He wasn't feeling well. He went into the hospital to check himself in. He was having shortness of breath. So he was in the hospital for about 5 days. He comes back home only to realize that they are squatters in his property. So he knocks on the door and he's like, who are you and why are you in my home? They show him a lease and there is a whole family in there. Mother, daughter, 3 kids. I don't know if there's a father, but now he can't evict them because there are kids. And they made up a lease under his name. And he's like, but I did not rent you this property. And they're like, well, the homeowner did, so here's my lease. Also, a 10-year lease. Who does a 10-year lease? Nobody. He obviously didn't do it. He was in the hospital. We called the cops. We tried to get that removed. And it's been 6 months since. And now we are going through an eviction for his own house, and they left him homeless. Essentially homeless outside of a hospital. So you cannot beat New York City tenants or squatters.
New at 5. Georgia's new tougher penalties against squatters are now the law of the land.
The new law comes after a series of Channel 2 Action News investigations exposed the loophole squatters were taking advantage of. Now, consumer investigator Justin Gray is looking into how local police departments are using their new powers to criminally charge squatters.
Downtown.
Karen, we've been reaching out to police departments, solicitors general, and local magistrates about this to see if criminal citations are now being written to squatters. Many of the departments tell us they are still trying to figure out how all of this is going to work, but South Fulton has already created a special task force just to go after squatters, armed with the authority of this new law.
Good.
I know everybody thinks you can go in the house and squat and sit there. That law changed the other day. That law changed.
The jig is up, man.
Police officers knocked on the door of this South Fulton home this month, armed with new powers to cite squatters criminally on the spot. The suspected squatters ran out the back door.
All
nice
these
house.
fake leases and I got receipts for this and I rented this. No. I didn't. That's over with.
So we're basically putting these squatters on notice. The law has changed.
Y'all squatting in my house.
It was a very different scene earlier this spring when police were called to Paul Callan's DeKalb County home.
They'll break in your house and then use the law to stay in there. Where is it? You had the lease, ma'am? I did. Don't worry about the lease. Yeah, bro, you got a full lease.
Police body camera video was rolling as officers were handed what they suspected was a fake lease.
So you got somebody with a fake lease? Yeah, I think the lease is fake, but, it's no way I can prove it.
So the officers just left, told Callens and the suspected squatter it's not a criminal matter.
It's gonna take time. Like, we can't put you out, but we're not here for that. And he have to deal with it with local courts and so that.
They shouldn't be in there for, a minute. They should be, out immediately.
Right.
Are you selling a squatter home right here? After an exclusive Channel 2 Action News hidden camera investigation and a series of viral Channel 2 Action News squatter stories, Georgia lawmakers rewrote the law on squatters, spelling out that this is a crime that must be dealt with in magistrate court in a matter of days, not weeks or months.
Well, this is no longer a civil matter. Once this law was passed, it has now became a criminal offense.
Hi, yeah, it's Justin Gray from Channel 2. Are you squatting in this home? No, I'm not. You're not? This is one of the first houses South Fulton police have visited under the new law just last week.
Oh.
They determined the suspected squatter is in the eviction process with the corporate landlord who is looking to recoup $60,000 in unpaid rent.
Damn.
Can react quicker now. Absolutely. I think with the current law that is now in effect, we will be able to react more proactively.
Let's go back to Paul Allen's home. Channel 2 Action News cameras were there the day marshals evicted Takesha Bailey from the house. But look what we found right down the street a few weeks later.
Criminal trespass notice. DeKalb Marshals been evicted by the DeKalb Marshals office.
Jane Doe evicted here according to the paperwork, but look at the belongings. See anything familiar? How about the same suitcase?
We noticed the luggage tag here, Takesha Bailey. That's the same woman at the other home.
According to court records, the alleged squatters here claim to have been scammed. That's the same thing Takesha Bailey says about Paul Callen's house. Bailey told me in an Instagram message that she's no squatter, that she is a scam victim who was evicted from suspected squatter homes twice in a month.
So yeah.
This is crazy. Like, I literally just spent half of my tax money
Now, Keisha.
I'm here with my kids.
It's crazy because they're just gonna find the next victim and get out of that one.
But under the new Georgia law, suspected squatters now will immediately be issued a criminal citation.
Good.
So y'all can pass the word around. All this squatting, the other day.
If you watching this now, the jig is up.
Under the new Georgia law, suspected squatters are supposed to immediately be issued a criminal citation and have 3 days to present a lease. If that lease is fraudulent, this goes from a misdemeanor case to a felony. Another thing with the new law is that it doesn't have to just be the homeowner who reports this. Now anyone, a neighbor, an HOA can call police and say, we want you to investigate this squatter home.
Looks like what you found, though, was some of the people renting the homes didn't know they were squatting. They were giving their money to a company that was being bad with them.
We see that in some cases. We also see people saying that, and that is what gets worked out in court.
I like this. The jig is up. The jig is up.
Wow, a lot going on. Justin, thanks.
18-year-old Kensley Alston and 19-year-old Hallie Tejada are facing a string of charges in connection to the murder of 52-year-old Nadia Vitales. Both Tejada and Alston pled not guilty at their arraignment in criminal court, where prosecutors laid out the details of the crime.
Nadia Vitales sent a photo of her Lexus parked near 206 East 31st Street here in Manhattan. She was in the process of moving into apartment 19A of that building, and she's seen on surveillance video arriving at that building along with her dog and belongings around 11:30 a.m. on the 12th. She's never seen alive again.
2 days later, on March 14th, her concerned loved ones called police for a welfare check at the apartment. That led to the discovery of her lifeless body in a duffel bag.
Coats were piled on top of a bag on the floor in the closet. And when family members moved the coats aside, they noticed that the bag contained a body. That body was later identified as Nadia Vitales.
Prosecutors say surveillance video shows the pair walking in and out of the building and to Vitales' apartment before and after she was last seen. The duo was allegedly squatting in the apartment. According to court documents, they gained entry to the building by repeatedly buzzing until someone would let them in. An autopsy determined Vitales died of blunt force trauma. Prosecutors say she was still alive when she was stuffed in the duffel bag.
Defendant Alston said that Ms. Vitales was still breathing when they bound her wrists and put her body in a bag, which they hid in the closet.
The two reportedly fled to Pennsylvania in Vitales' vehicle, where they crashed the vehicle and, according to prosecutors, went on a 9-day shopping spree with Vitales' credit card before they were arrested.
During their 9 days in Pennsylvania, they made multiple purchases at various locations, captured on surveillance video with Ms. Vitales' credit cards. They purchased a PS5, AirPods, clothing, food, and even a diamond ring.
I have video of you. Who are these people? Figure out the situation.
Yeah, but they're in my house, man.
Relax.
No.
To understand how this day ended,
we need the police right away.
With multiple 911 calls and arrests, we have to start at the beginning.
Adele, the hardest question is, how do you say your name?
We met Adele Andaloro outside the home her parents left her in Flushing, Queens. She's in the process of selling it.
No, he locked it.
But she's been locked out. She claims squatters moved in on February 6th and refused to leave.
What's it like being here knowing you can't go inside of your own home?
It's enraging. It really is.
In New York, squatters have rights after 30 days.
By the time that someone does their investigation and they do their work and their job, we'll be well over the 30 days, and this man will have stolen my home. And now she's back.
Just after wrapping up our interview, a woman showed up.
What are you doing in the house? Are you renting this house?
Why are you here? She unlocked the front door, saw our cameras, and took off.
It's open. Let's go in the house. It's open.
Adele and her daughter, with the property deed in hand, went inside.
This is my furniture. These are my curtains.
She didn't just find her belongings inside.
There's a man sleeping right there. Get out of my house.
She found 2 men. How long have you lived here?
I moved in about 2 days ago. They've called the police on me, and I've called the locksmiths. I didn't come in illegally. The door was open.
Police started interviewing neighbors and looking for documents.
Do you have something that shows that you've been here for more than 30 days?
They took the man who told me he had been renting for 2 days out in handcuffs.
They got one out.
And escorted the other guy off the property. Now you're afraid to come out.
I'm not coming out. This house is empty. This is my home. My locksmith is on the corner waiting to change my locks. And that's not fair. It's not fair that I, as the homeowner, should be having to go through this.
How you doing? Minutes later, a locksmith showed up. But police gave her a warning before they left.
I may end up in handcuffs today if this man shows up here and says that I have illegally evicted him. I said to them, let him take me to court the way I've been told to take him to court. But today, I'm not leaving my house.
Less than 10 minutes after police left and the locks were changed. The man who claims to be the one actually leasing the house shows up.
Call the police again.
With the other guy, police took off the property.
Do you see this? This guy just literally broke down my door, broke through myself and my daughter to get in here. This guy just forced himself into my house. No, he did not. Yes, he did. No, he did. And so did you. You broke through the front door.
Officer. The man called the police on her.
So why is it that I have to leave and he doesn't have to leave?
Because technically he can't be kicked out. We need to go to court.
They consider this a landlord-tenant issue. And by law, it has to be handled through the housing court, not with police. If you own this house, you would not want her inside.
I don't own the house. I don't own this.
Exactly,
yes.
she does.
Yes, but then once again, you should know how the law works.
I do know how it works.
There's rules to the as you got to go to court and send me to civil court.
He says he signed a lease in October, but wouldn't tell us with who.
I got proof longer than that.
Show us the proof.
But who are you for me to show? I showed it to cops.
Dan with Channel 7 News. If you don't want to show it, you don't want to show it.
Come here, brother. I like that.
I would like to see it. He didn't show me a lease. This is a bill. A bill for work he says he had done to the house. He didn't show police a lease either.
The police department doesn't have the lease?
No.
He's got no documentation.
Just bills.
So Adele, you're getting arrested right now?
I'm being arrested.
For what?
For being in my own home.
And where's your lease?
She's fighting the house. It's not her house anymore.
My deed is current and legal.
Arrested for unlawful eviction. She changed the locks on a man who claims he lives there. So how does this all end then? When do you leave?
The way it ends is either she pays me my money that I put into the house, pay me the money, and I'll leave, or send me to court, and we deal with the judge in court. It's that simple.
He says it's that simple. It's not that simple. Housing court is very complicated. You know how long it takes to get, on average, someone evicted from a home in New York City? 20 months.
Oh, yeah.
20
so
months.
A roundabout. In some cases have been filed in 2017 and they're still not through the court system
Wow.
yet. So it takes a very long time to get someone out of your home if they think it's a landlord-tenant issue.
Infuriating. A bit about this law that even allows a squatter to take possession within 30 days.
Even if they say they've been there for 30 days, police consider it a landlord-tenant issue and they can't intervene. It has to go to housing court, which can take up to 2 years. So if you're a landlord and you have someone who's squatting, they have no lease, they've never paid a bill before, you cannot change the locks, you cannot change the utilities, you cannot remove their belongings, or you will be arrested.
Dan, it's clear as day that the laws need to change. Is there anyone that's working on changing the laws?
I'm actually currently interviewing a few lawmakers who are filing laws as we speak to help change this. They want to do something that sounds very simple. They just want to define the word tenant in the law so that way people cannot take advantage of it. We have some of the strictest rules in the entire country when it comes to protecting tenants, and we should. Those are for real people who are good people,
right? Yeah.
And they're to protect tenants from greedy landlords. But what do you do if you're a property owner and you have a greedy tenant that you can't get out?
And I would imagine there
squatter.
are professional squatters per se, that there are people who exist who know this law is on the books and they know they're protected to an extent. They know how to sort of milk the system.
It seems like we just saw that unfold right before our eyes.
Well, I've received about 24 emails from people saying that they know exactly what to say when police show up. I'm not saying that this is the case in this instance, but they say, I've been here for 30 days. It's the first thing they'll say when police show up, to say, okay, we can't arrest you. Because you would think the number one question I get from people is, why can't they be arrested for trespassing?
Right.
You think, this is my house, you broke in.
Right.
They say that they've been there for 30 days. It becomes a landlord-tenant dispute.
This woman is trying to get into the house, but her access is being blocked, and it's her own home. Tracy Albert and her husband Miles used their savings to buy this 4-bedroom dream home in Riverside, California 14 months ago, but they have not been able to move in, even though they've been paying the mortgage every month.
He just said he wasn't leaving. That was it. Wasn't going to leave the house, barricaded himself in the house.
So who's the guy blocking their way, refusing them entrance to their own home? It's the previous owner.
Do you think that this was his plan from the beginning?
Yes.
Realtor Chris Taylor says he's never seen anything like this in 18 years selling homes.
Every I was dotted, T was crossed, everything that could have been done was done. And there's nothing that could have been done to actually prevent this.
I definitely think it's a case of fraud, that he knew he wasn't going to move out, staged boxes to look like he was going to move out, and then stayed behind.
The Alberts say the courts keep pushing their case back.
I can't walk onto the lot. I was told that would be trespassing.
Just over a week ago, Christina Tennyson, her husband, and 2 kids closed on this 6-bedroom, 3-acre property just south of Manteca. Because the family wanted to paint and update the home before moving in, it was left vacant. Just a couple days ago, she came to check on the progress. But when she drove up to her property to meet her contractors, she was surprised to find a U-Haul truck.
And then I noticed a car and some women and children, running around my driveway. At the time, my contractor was here. So I just went upstairs and I asked him, hey, did you bring a U-Haul? And he said no. So we kind of immediately knew, something's not right.
She confronted them.
I came downstairs to ask them what they were doing here, and they informed me they were moving in. And, I informed them, no, this is my house. And they were trying to tell me that their dad had rented the house.
Turns out the alleged dad was one of 2 men caught on her security camera a few days earlier on her property.
So I just, told them I was going to call the cops.
She did, and as shown here, they immediately left just minutes before sheriff's deputies arrived.
Unfortunately, they told me because they didn't break into the home and because they actually didn't damage any property, even if they do catch them, there's nothing they can do.
Neighbors here have no idea what else to do. They already tried kicking out squatters with a baseball bat. They got the county to come and kick them out, but they say the next day they were back again, and one even tried to attack them. Nick Masala's never formally met his next-door neighbors, but don't expect him to roll out the welcome mat. Last week, a neighbor chased the squatters out of this house with a baseball bat, and the county boarded it up. But Masala says as soon as the cameras were off and the crews were gone,
that night they came back with a U-Haul. Moved the couch and all kinds of stuff back in there.
You can even see the ledge where they were able to climb up and even some furniture through the front door. And they were back with a vengeance. Metro identified that suspect as 28-year-old Louis Lehman. He's wanted for attempted burglary and home invasion.
And that guy should go to jail.
In the meantime, neighbors banding together, posting these flyers.
We got cameras that we're putting up.
Letting them know they're watching.
The free ride's over. In fact, it never started. Not here.
Now, we looked at a notice that was left on the door. It says it's owned by a bank in Dallas. It's owned by Fannie Mae. We called their office in Dallas, and they say they try and contract local people to make sure that the property is kept up until it can be sold.
This morning, a judge agrees the squatters have to go. Farazan Rahman went to court to get guests out of her Durham, North Carolina rental.
I don't know if they've vandalized the place or not. No idea. We'll only find out when they leave.
Rahman, who spoke to Diane Wilson from our ABC-owned station WTVD, says the guests agreed to a long-term rental from October of last year until last month. But now they won't leave and haven't paid for several weeks. So she called the police, and whoever answered the door promised they'd go.
I assure you, we'll be gone in the morning if they can just give us until the morning. That's all I'm asking for, so I can get our stuff packed up and we'll go.
But they didn't leave. Instead, they left a note outside the door saying, "We will vacate the property when you have filed the proper paperwork with the civil magistrate for an eviction, for we are legal residents of this home." They claim the checkout date is June 24th and were overcharged. Rahman denies that, went to court, and the guests did not show up. The judge granted summary ejectment, but it's not over yet. The guests have 10 days to appeal.
Good that I was granted eviction, but the fact that I have to wait 10 more days to get them out is a little frustrating.
On their website, Airbnb warns hosts if a guest stays a month or longer, local tenancy laws could protect them, and you may not be able to remove them from your property without proceeding through required eviction processes in court. Airbnb also released a statement saying issues like this are very rare on Airbnb, and our team is continuing to work with our host to provide support. Rahman must now wait until June 25th to see if the guests will appeal, and if they don't, she can then file to have them removed. The homeowner says it was difficult to get Airbnb to acknowledge her issues, but they recently agreed to help with any damage, additional cleaning, and payment for the extra nights the guests stayed and did not pay.
Busting 8 migrants suspected of squatting in a New York City basement. Officers found guns and drugs on the scene, and most of the suspects, as you'd expect, are already back on the street. Good morning, everybody.
And Bill, good morning. The landlord of this home now dealing with a real nightmare. The reality that 6 of those squatters, many from Venezuela, who were just charged with multiple charges on gun and drug charges, may very well, presumably, be right back living in the basement apartment illegally. This is the multi-family home in the Bronx. Down that alley is where we believe that basement is, where these 8 migrants were living. Sources tell Fox one of the 6 migrants released without bail, 24-year-old Hector de Sousa Viata, was previously charged with attempted murder in New York. The Bronx District Attorney asked for all 8 migrant squatters to be held on bail, but in the end, bail was only set for 2 of the migrants, including a migrant who had an open gun indictment against him at the time of his arrest. This all began when police responded to a 911 call for a person with a gun. Police say they chased De Sousa Viate into the basement apartment and arrested him with a loaded gun. Inside the apartment were 7 other migrants, including one migrant who tried to run off with a gun. A 7-year-old was also inside that basement. Now, according to the criminal complaint, police found 4 guns in total, including a ghost gun, 2 Ziploc bags full of ketamine and cocaine. Prosecutors say the group had the intent to sell the drugs. Here's what a neighbor said.
They were a nuisance in the neighborhood. You know, the motorcycles, the noise, their cars with the, big boom boxes or big, sound systems. They probably arrived at around 6 months ago, 7 months ago, and it was out of nowhere.
Across the street from this middle school that you see there. Bottom line, Dana and Bill, this story really encompasses 3 major issues in this city: the migrant crisis, the squatter crisis, and on top of all of that, the bail reform issue, where repeated offenders are released over and over again. 6 of those migrant squatters released without bail.
Now, I'll add another, which is child endangerment, indeed. Brian Yennis, thank you.
And I can't make this up, real estate news. A man was convicted for illegally squatting in somebody else's condo, and he was sentenced to 40 years in prison, y'all. 40 years in prison. What happened? Not only did the man move into the condo without permission or knowledge from the homeowner, but he also told the HOA that the ownership of the unit had been transferred to him. He went and filed this paperwork in court transferring the ownership. I've posted about something similar happening in Georgia before. It's essentially deed theft, and people are creating or falsifying documentation that shows that they are the new rightful owner of somebody else's property. 25 of the 40 years that he got convicted for came from falsifying personal identifiable information, the paperwork that he filed in the court. The other 15 years of the sentence that he got was related to essentially grand theft over $100,000, because the condo is $700,000. If you're a homeowner, obviously protect yourself from deed theft. Fulton County has a whole system that you can sign up for. So if there is ever an attempt to transfer ownership of your property to somebody else.
When Jean, an 81-year-old grandma in Idaho, inherited a plot of land in Los Angeles, she thought her financial worries were over until squatters claimed the property.
The sheriff won't go there and cut the locks for you.
No, they're not allowed to. The squatters have rights.
At least 20 people in a dozen RVs took control and barred her from her own land. Neighbors told us people inside were armed, and they weren't happy to see us.
You think if there were some murderers in here, they would enjoy you coming up to the crack and looking through the camera?
Who has more rights here, you, the property owner, or the people living there illegally?
Oh, I have rights. I get to pay my property taxes and pay for liability insurance.
Over the last 3 years, she's spent her savings, about $100,000, to cover legal fees, taxes, and lost rent. She finally found a buyer that will take the property with the squatters, but it's going to cost her
$800,000. I dropped the price.
$800,000?
Yes, sir.
So you lost almost $1 million on this.
Yes, I have.
Squatters' rights go back to the British legal system. The idea to ensure abandoned or unused property can be put to good use by people who need it.
No comment.
But the good intentions of centuries-old law,
a couple accused of squatting and killing a woman inside her mother's apartment,
have created some modern-day nightmares.
These squatters have turned this $4.5 million Beverly Hills mansion into a party hub.
This is the front line, if you will, in the battle to keep squatters out of an abandoned property. This property's been vacant for 4 years. It's an eyesore in the community here.
The owner died during COVID, and when no family claimed it, squatters did.
See the broken windows there, the graffiti, and someone's been living in this.
It's been a horrible nightmare.
Terry Cortez lives next door and wants the city to tear it down.
I think the neighbors and I are very scared sometimes of what kind of people come up and people sometimes come in.
Since law enforcement can't do much and court battles can take years, others are now stepping in with different approaches.
It's not right to not pay your utilities or your rent.
I was about to move too until he turned off the lights.
Lando Thomas and Kimry Kotchik run a company called Squatter Squad.
What happened when the owner came to clean the place after the Airbnb ended?
The Airbnb guest refused to leave.
And that's it?
Yep, that's it. And Los Angeles says he can stay.
They break locks squatters install and put up cameras to monitor them 24/7. But so far, nothing has chased this squatter away.
The police's hands are tied, the sheriff's hands are tied.
Squatting is a problem for landlords reaching far beyond Southern California. According to a survey from the National Rental Home Council, cities in Texas, Georgia, and Florida have more squatters than any other metropolitan area.
Knock, knock.
But there are solutions. When Flash Shelton found a squatter in his mother's home in Northern California 5 years ago.
Are you Flash?
Yeah.
I'm Marla.
Hey.
I'm really sorry.
He figured out a way to work around the system that often appears to protect the squatter, not the property owner. Shelton outsquats the squatter.
These people feel like the law allows them to do it, so why not me?
The squatter hunter, as he's known.
This is the woman leaving at 5:06 a.m.
Target squatters like this woman who moved into an apartment without permission while it was being fixed up. The property owner has provided Shelton with a legal lease to the apartment.
Based on the conversations and based on everything, I'll make a decision whether I'm going to literally move in with them.
Because he's now the real tenant, he can change the lock and turn the tables on the squatter.
They can't kick me out because I have a lease. So it's a game, it's a chess match.
Sometimes the squatter calls the cops. In this case, they quickly determined it's a matter for civil court, which still could take months to resolve with no guarantees.
Squatters are taking advantage of people. They just know that there's a system out there that allows them to live rent-free.
If someone takes possession of a property illegally, they're in violation of the law.
State Senator Bob Archuleta pushed through a new law in California allowing property owners to file a no trespass notice with local police.
It's good for a year, and it's there, it's on record. This way it gives the authority for the officers to respond because it's already been registered that no one is allowed in that building.
Florida also has a new law allowing cops to evict squatters immediately when they don't have a valid lease, and several other states have passed or proposed tougher measures on squatting. But until there are new laws on the books,
they're just saying, we're not leaving.
Lando Thomas and Kimry Kotchik will confront squatters for a fee.
Knock, knock.
Starting at $2,500.
Jay, you in there, bro? How you doing, man?
This time, they're trying to get a 26-year-old named Samjay to leave this Airbnb rental, along with his pregnant girlfriend and their 5 dogs.
You were supposed to leave on the 10th.
This property owner needs his property back.
I would love to give it back to him, and as I've said, as soon as we can get a place.
It's now a race against time. If Samjay manages to stay here for 30 days, they'll have to go to court to evict him, where the law considers squatters legitimate tenants with certain rights of their own.
Are you going to move out?
It's not possible for me to get all my stuff out now.
So where will you go when you leave here?
We got nowhere to go.
It sounds like you're saying you're on the verge of homelessness.
You could say that. Yeah, times are tough.
The squad finally talked Samjay into leaving with an offer to pay for a motel room and storage while he looks for a new place to live. And as hard as that may be to believe, for now, it's the quickest and cheapest way to get this squatter to leave a property he doesn't actually own. For Eye on America, I'm Carter Evans in Los Angeles.